We're about to get started. I'm not going to wait the whole 5 minutes. We're going to get going in a second, but share the show, hit that like, let everybody know we're live so they can hop over and check this. We'll be with you in just 1 second. Welcome to the show, everybody, and hello to our guest, Glenn Kirshner, who is with us, who has become one of my favorite people, I have to say. I've always liked his work and what he said, and when we see him on the MS and the NBCs and the like, but after hanging out with him and actually being able to have real conversations post-Sexy Liberal a couple of times, it's been, like, really invigorating, and I have to tell you right out of the gate, folks, the passion is real, and it's always there. Glenn, thanks for joining me this morning.
Hal, always great to be with you.
Yeah. So we were talking right before we came on because there's just fire hose of news all the time that there's no way we're going to cover all of it. But one of the stories that is really, I feel like, and it seems like we share, is that the Springfield, Ohio story was supposed to be just kind of this racist bait that Trump and Vance would drop for their followers. And that would be that. You know, they would just kind of, like any other sick, sexist, misogynistic, or bigoted thing they do, they just decided, well, we'll just throw this out there. And then it started to sprawl on them. Agreed?
Yeah, and now it's daily bomb threats. It's Haitians, Haitian Americans, really, immigrants of all stripe, because many of the Trump supporters don't care who they attack, who they assault.
Right.
And what so upsets me, and you're right, Hal, the passion is real. I had it for 30 years as a prosecutor, dealing with victims, dealing with the safety of the community, and making sure all the while I protected the rights of the defendants that I and that my prosecutors were pursuing, right? Because without protecting the rights of the folks being prosecuted, the whole thing falls apart. And so the passion continues into my retirement now. This is not what I had on my bingo card for my retirement. But, when I see Donald Trump, one of the highest political figures that we have, endangering entire populations of Americans, of immigrants, by lying about them and what they're doing, it so makes my blood boil, primarily because he is on release. He is a defendant on pretrial release in multiple felony cases, and he's a defendant on release pending sentencing in yet another case. And Hal, when you have somebody on pretrial release or on release pending sentencing, the law provides if they present a danger to the community, even one person in the community, they should be detained pending trial or pending sentencing. And we are not applying that law to Donald Trump. Diddy Combs just got locked up pre-trial. I wonder what is the difference between one billionaire and another about when they should be detained pending trial. It is this deep injustice at play every day in our country that just drives me to distraction. And the passion is real.
Do you think that there is one of the primary reasons is that they fear his followers? Is that, that because of January 6th and the ancillary violence of his crowd, that he uses that sort of as a human shield?
if the primary reason any prosecutor, any judge makes a decision or declines to make a decision in the case, if the primary reason involves the possible collateral consequences of making that decision, like how the defendant's loyalists might
Right.
react, then we are done as
Right.
a straight-faced system of justice. I hope that's not what's driving the train, and I don't think that's what's driving the decision-making train at the Department of Justice or on Jack Smith's team or in the state court prosecutions. I think the reality is prosecutors can be a timid bunch, and we don't like to make waves where we don't have to. And I think that is never more true than when we're going against the ruling class criminals for the crimes they obviously committed. We let so many of the ruling class criminals, both personal and corporate, pay their way out of their crimes with fines, interest,
Right.
penalty, and back taxes, rather than treating them the way we treat everybody who does not enjoy wealth and power and privilege and influence and connections. And that is an injustice. I'll tell you, if I were king of the world and if I got to make the policies, I would turn the criminal justice system on its head. Because you know what, Hal? We go after some poor kid who sells a rock of crack or snatches a person. We might stick them in pretrial detention, and yet we let the ruling class criminals victimize enormous swaths of the American population with impunity. Maybe they have to pay a fine or back interest or taxes. That I would turn on its head, because the people doing the most harm to our nation are the ruling class criminals, the oligarchs. Sometimes I call them the American mullahs, because they are victimizing everyone, not just the person having their purse snatched. That we need to change. And I think if ever we had an opportunity to change it, it would be to elect a former prosecutor. Kamala Harris has the heart of a prosecutor, and probably my favorite line that I've heard her use a couple of times now is her whole professional career. She had one client, the people. For 30 years as a prosecutor, I had one client, the people. I was doing the people's work. Maybe we can see real change in the way we apply our nation's laws if Kamala Harris gets elected.
Yeah, I am, as you are, I'm sure, curious about how her history with that department and the challenges that she's gone through as a professional in the DA and as an AG. That's gotta wear on you. That's got to be a part of the unfinished business of your professional and political life, to have any of that running around. And when it has to do with victims of assault or murder or even fraud on a major scale, like, I'm sure she looks at very proudly at what she was able to get for the citizens of California when it comes to the real estate fraud and some of the sort of Enron-ish stuff that was always going on in the state. But I'm sure she still feels like some of those folks got away with it, or she might have gotten something, but she didn't get everything she wanted, right? And so there might be a real bite at the apple, both at the DOJ and in terms of legislation, perhaps in the future.
Yeah, it becomes part of you when you spend years and decades fighting for justice, trying to vindicate the rights of victims, trying to protect the community, all the while protecting the rights of every defendant, which is a critically important component of what we need to be doing as prosecutors. I always told the prosecutors I supervised at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington, D.C., you are never more vital in your role and your responsibility as a prosecutor as when you are declining to bring a charge, because it's not the right thing to do. So it becomes part of you. Somebody once said, and I will not attribute this quote because I don't care for the person who said it, but somebody once said, if you shake me awake in the middle of the night and you ask me the question, what are you? I probably say, I'm a prosecutor, right?
Yeah.
It becomes part of you. And that fight for justice, equal justice for everybody, never leaves some people. I think it's built into who Kamala Harris is now. And so I have such hope for a Harris administration, not getting ahead of ourselves, but I like the way the polls are looking, not that I'm a polls guy. I have such hope for the future of our country and our criminal justice system.
Yeah. By the way, you're watching Hal Sparks Mornings, Mega Worldwide. This is Glenn Kirshner. He has a regular videos he puts up every single day on Justice Matters on his YouTube channel. Please check them out, because, especially if you want some depth to your news stories, because that's one of the issues that you have. A lot of these things can be wonky or even a Gordian knot of possible charges in some of these cases, or the potential or lack of potential for people being charged around that. And your understanding of that, I think, really helps. What's because I think a lot of creativity is the art of the possible. Do I have the paint to paint this thing? Do I have the team to film this? And I think a lot of charges, quite frankly, prosecutions are the art of the possible as well. What do we have evidence of? We may know they're guilty as hell about this, but what can we prove, right? And one of the things I would like you to address is Donald Trump has been selling this idea that because his handpicked lawyer or judge in Freudian slip in Florida dismissed the case on the idea that there shouldn't be a special counsel, that is somehow a violation of the Constitution or what have you. That now he's saying totally exonerated, that we had that dismissed very powerfully, not guilty. What's your response when you hear him say that?
Hal, that's a great question, and I appreciate you going there, because there's a series of stories in the news presently that I think at first blush look like one thing, and people get frustrated, and I understand why. But when you dig down, and if you go to my Justice Matters YouTube channel and listen to me run my mouth for like 8 or 10 or 12 minutes, it's a long time, I know. But I kind of lay out why at first blush it may look like one thing, but it's really a very different thing. Let me give you an example, and I am going to ask a question. Down in Georgia, we saw Judge McAfee in Donald Trump's RICO prosecution for trying to steal the Georgia state election as part of the 2020 presidential election. Judge McAfee dismissed a couple of charges, 2 against Donald Trump that involved the fake elector certificates, false documents, charges. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, here we go again. This is terrible. But if you read the opinion, first of all, there are still 8 felony charges pending against Donald Trump in Georgia, including the lead charge, a RICO charge, for which he could get up to 20 years. These 2 charges don't amount to a hill of beans. But what he said was, because of the supremacy clause issue, which at its core says if a federal law conflicts with a state law, the federal law wins. Because of that, 2 of these charges against Donald Trump are really more appropriately brought as federal crimes. Not that Donald Trump didn't do anything wrong, not that he didn't commit the state court crimes that have been charged against him. So look at this. It's almost more of a win than it is a loss, because what it's saying is, Jack Smith, you got some more criminal wood to saw federally right here if you're interested and have the time. So at first blush, it looks bad, but when you dig down, it's not bad, right? And the same thing is true in some of the other cases. Like Jack Smith just said, Donald Trump filed a request for a 30-day delay down in Florida to file his appeal of Judge Cannon's BS dismissal of his case. It will be reversed by the 11th Circuit. We'll get to that in a minute. And Jack Smith said what? Judge, we don't oppose the 30-day delay. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, Jack Smith, you should be moving faster, going harder, being more aggressive. It was the exact right thing for Jack Smith to say. And there are 3 reasons. You can look at my video to get all 3. I don't want to dwell on this, but let me do the number 1 most important reason. Jack Smith and his team are working 28 hours a day. Yes, I know, metaphysically that's impossible. They're working 24 hours a day preparing what? A mega brief that they're going to drop on Donald Trump's head in his federal case in D.C. When? On September 26th. So, and it's going to be all of Donald Trump's crimes, all of Donald Trump's conduct, all of Donald Trump's statements, and attached to that mega brief, there's going to be, according to Jack Smith's filing, grand jury transcripts of the testimony of the Republican witnesses who testified before the grand jury about the crimes of a fellow Republican, Donald Trump. There will be FBI 302s, write-ups of interviews. There will be other evidence, and it's all going to be dumped into the public square, maybe with some redactions, on September 26th. So Jack Smith said, you know what? Donald Trump wants 30 more days to file his brief in Florida in the appeal, which frankly won't be resolved until well into 2025. His filing deadline presently is September 25th. You know what, Judge? We're really busy getting after Donald Trump in D.C. I don't oppose a 30-day extension. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. Again, first blush, dig down. Now, to answer your question directly, Hal, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals will decide whether Judge Aileen Cannon, Trump-appointed judge, who was told by her superiors, including the chief judge of that federal district down in Florida, do not accept this assignment. You've already been reversed twice by the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals for doing something to Donald Trump's benefit that the law does not allow. And she said, I don't care. I'm his gal. I am taking liberties here. She didn't say that expressly. I'm keeping the case even though I've been advised not to. Well, then she went against the law, against the precedent, against what the Supreme Court said about special counsel actually being a thing, being lawful, being constitutional. They've said that dating back to 1974 when an independent counsel, an independent prosecutor was going after Richard Nixon. She doesn't have a legal leg to stand on, but she doesn't care. She again did a favor for Donald Trump and threw his case out. The 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, I suspect, will unanimously reverse her, just like a 3-judge panel did previously when she tried to do an unlawful favor for Donald Trump. And the 3 judges who unanimously reversed her previously were all appointed by Republican presidents, 2 appointed by Donald Trump himself. They're going to do it again. They're probably going to rule that she abused her discretion again. And then the court's going to have the opportunity to sua sponte, fancy term for on their own, without even being asked by Jack Smith, reassign the case to a new judge in Florida who is fair, impartial, independent, and hasn't repeatedly abused his or her discretion in Donald Trump's favor. So this could be a win-win-win for the American people, and that case will be able to move forward in a way that we can all have confidence in the reliability of the outcome at the end of the day. So all of these things look bad, they feel bad. Yes, they're taking way too long. This stuff should have been wrapped up well in advance of the election. For that, I fault the Department of Justice for not getting off the dime quickly enough until Congress had to kind of give them a kick in the pants with the January 6th House Select Committee hearing. But all of that is a long way of saying we're going to get there later than we should, but we're going to get there.
Yeah, I personally think that Aileen Cannon is literally choosing the world's stupidest way of recusing herself. I feel like, and this kind of relates to my thoughts about them, tiptoeing around maggots and the damage they may do, and again, look at January 6th, look at the guy who shot up the FBI field office in Cincinnati. They know this reactionary group is there, and it's even worse for the people they start calling rhinos and then start threatening. And if you're Aileen Cannon, you're really in a tough position, because on the one hand, if she just flat out recused and stepped down and they handed it over to somebody else, maggots will forever blame her when he's found guilty, because he is guilty and the evidence, the preponderance of evidence it's ridiculous. So of course he's going to be found guilty. So you let him, you should have stayed and blocked all the fake hoaxy whatever that they're going to blame her for. On the other hand, if she's got to know, because she's seen the evidence. If she stays, she's going to be presiding over him being found guilty. She's got to know this. So the only way out for her is to do something like this and have the court do it for her. They'll recuse her and punt her, and it'll buy him some time to the election. That's my thought. That this is just her pulling ripcord.
Because we all know self-preservation is a powerful motivator. And if that is what is driving Aileen Cannon to do unlawful things to the advantage of Donald Trump, because she thinks it's ultimately going to give her the cover she needs. So when others remove her from the case, she can say, I stuck with him until the end. So, Donald Trump supporters, please don't get after me. Don't endanger me. Don't, dox me. Don't swat my house. Don't go after my family members, because self-preservation is a powerful motivator. But I'm sorry, if you can't take the heat, get out of the judicial kitchen, take off the black robe, go to private practice and line your pockets. I had a hitman following me when I was a RICO prosecutor in Washington, D.C.
Right.
It didn't alter my approach to the case one whit. I had to be protected. Sure. My whole office had to be removed, recused from the case, and we had to bring an outside prosecutor from the Eastern District of Virginia, U.S. Attorney's Office. I was a witness. I testified against the hitman and all of that. If you can't take the heat, I understand self-preservation. I don't want to get hurt. I don't want my friends or family to get hurt. I get, you know how many death threats I get? Not death threats. I get threats. Some of them are death threats every day, and you have to deal with it. And if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. And I hope that, if that's what's motivating Judge Cannon, she should just get herself off the case now.
Right. I mean, I agree. And I obviously, I got death threats. But I mean, I get them too, but I also got them on like Queer as Folk, for example, that they knew when I was going to come for a DVD signing when we were doing promotion for the show. And one guy was going to throw acid in my face and another guy was going to, like they knew where we would be staying. So they'd be in my room waiting for me or whatever. And like the FBI literally got involved and they had to deal with this. And my response was, I went to all those DVD signings that I was scheduled to go to, and I stayed longer than anybody else because no. That said, and I feel like you're cut from the same cloth in that regard. Clearly, in her case, I feel like she's a kind of a power hungry Republican who is appointed by a hedonist who cares more about themselves than they do about the world around them. And there's nothing that's more important than their own comfort or power in this world. So, at some point, I think she just tapped out. And what she's going to do is go back to doing whatever mission they set her on, whether it's, law in Florida where they're protecting something that DeSantis is going to do in the same way that Amy Coney Barrett and these others had one job. Get rid of Roe. Whatever else you do while you're there is fine. It's icing on the cake. But the majority of it is all you're there to do is to get rid of Roe. We want credit for that and we want it done. And that gave Trump the biblical mythology that he is using post these assassination attempts. God so loves me that he misdirected an assassin's bullet so it wouldn't hit me, but hit a firefighter because God can only do so much. God
doesn't like those other folks who are collateral damage. I guess
right.
God didn't care.
So gross. That part is so gross. So the guy who they arrested and the details around him being charged, I think federally with just felony possession of a weapon by a felon and then obliterating the serial number on it. Obviously, there'll be secondary. Charges. Yes. That they just
ordinarily what we do is when we lock somebody up promptly on probable cause, rather than go through a long, full-blown grand jury investigation, get an indictment, or what we do is we charge one or two of the main charges, the most readily provable charges, in what's called a complaint, which is kind of a one step on the road to an indictment, a criminal complaint. Right. Then we go into the jury, we investigate, as quickly as we can, and we return a more inclusive indictment for all of the possible crimes he committed.
Yeah. So, and by the way, again, you're watching Hal Sparks Mornings Megaworldwide, the greatest live stream that exists in the world. And Glenn is my guest, and he has he regularly posts videos. You usually put them up in the evening after the day's news, so you can kind of catch up. Yeah. Justice Matters. It's great stuff, and I recommend you subscribe to the channel and watch them immediately upon them coming out, because you really do. It helps to absorb a lot of the, as wonky as I was about the ACA when it came out, because I was the only guy apparently in the world who read the whole thing all the way through. That's what got me started on this road of political comedy and showing up on Stephanie Miller's show, was that I was the only person who could explain it, I guess, except the actual architects. In the same way, I think, like, the invaluable gifts you give, Glenn, is that you can break this part of it down. So this, and again, when you hear these stories, and this is from a prosecutor standpoint and from an awareness of what it will take to charge somebody, do you listen to a news story as they start to roll out and they get the details wrong, or they start to get out ahead of their skis? And do you have this same reaction that I have, where you're like, that's not what they said? That's not what happened. what happened, and the distinction between what happened and what they say happened and the rolling lie that might come is very different. And can lead people to that frustration that I think they feel about how somebody isn't charged or what have you. Yes?
Yeah, cutting right to the chase, I yell at the TV quite a bit, and my wife tells me to calm down and work on a YouTube video, and I try to clarify it. The most gratifying feedback I get, and we get it from around the world. I'm sending some justice stuff to some friends in Tasmania when I leave here, going to the post office. We've got, friends and Team Justice members around the world. The most gratifying feedback I get is, look, I'm not a lawyer. And I don't know much about the law. I try to watch it on the news. It doesn't make a lot of sense, the legal issues and the criminal cases. But when you lay it out on your YouTube video, I get it and I appreciate it. That is like crack to me. I mean, that is energizing and it fuels the mission and the passion every day. So yeah, it is frustrating. And much of the time I don't blame the media because they don't have 10 minutes to explain fully the nuances of each legal issue. They get 90 seconds. I'll tell you how the reason I started a YouTube channel at my wife's urging, because she got tired of hearing me complain about this precise point. I get 90 seconds or 2 minutes on MSNBC, and I'm grateful for it. A gutter kid from Jersey did not ever expect to be running his mouth on TV about anything. But it's so frustrating because I feel like I'm doing a disservice to the viewers. I can't explain the legal issue of the day in 2 minutes. And, I feel like I become part of the problem rather than part of the solution. That's why the YouTube channel was born. My wife's like, start a channel. You can talk for 10 minutes if you want. Nobody might listen to you, but you can do it. And then it just grew over time. We're kind of getting up near 1 million subscribers, which is crazy. But so I don't blame the media for that. There are things I blame mainstream media for, like treating this like a normal election, covering both sides like they're legitimate politicians when there's no two sides to treason. And this is not the way the campaign should be covered, in my opinion. But so that frustrates me more even than the legal piece.
One of the details that I think stood out to me on the story around the alleged shooter in this case, because again, with all the variants of this, the possibilities of where this could go, and the fact that this guy is clearly bananas. When you boil down to it, the Secret Service agent, and Secret Service agents are crack shots. They are very good at their job. They hit what they are shooting at. That is part and parcel to the gig. That this guy, the story that rolls out, they saw this guy pointing his barrel through the thing, and then they fired upon him, and he ran away, and yada yada. When it boils down to it, what apparently the Secret Service agent saw was the barrel itself, not the guy. I mean, he could have been over by a tree taking a piss because he'd been there for hours, apparently, waiting. The other, and then this woman saw him running away, and it was just a miracle of Jesus that she saw this guy and just decided to follow him because he seemed a little hinky. Never mind, the place is circled by, Trump, like front row Joe types who deadhead to see him wherever he goes. So they're probably always lurking. But they heard 5 shots and then saw a guy running and then got into a car and he drove away very purposefully. That's why she did it. It seems pretty obvious. But the fact that the guy saw a barrel and fired in that direction, didn't hit a person, and then they saw the guy fleeing, says to me that they didn't see the guy necessarily. They saw the barrel. And that will play out in the story later. If they got fingerprints on the rifle, if they got fingerprints, they will, because he's not a master criminal, it would seem. They're gonna attach him to all this stuff, right? And to his car and fiber and all this stuff. They'll be able to cover that or whatever. But the idea that he was not there, that he didn't fire, that there was not an exchange of fire, that all the shots came from the Secret Service, those kind of things, those are true facts that are meaningful to the circumstance, especially if you're doing a review of how the Secret Service behaved the second time something like this happened, right? And those details, like, every time I hear a detail that is consistent and it's one of those things, and then somebody just goes, screw that detail. I'm just going to talk about it as if it happened this way. It's really frustrating. And legally, it must be incredibly frustrating when you're talking about the documents case and its alleged dismissal, like Trump was talking about, or the Georgia case and the 2 counts that went there, or his continued defamation of E. Jean Carroll. It's like they don't care about facts at all on that side.
They don't. And how, it's funny because as a career prosecutor, I used to have legal briefs and case law that I printed out. I don't like to read things on the computer screen, so I probably killed more trees than I should have in my
Right.
career. But they were all over my office, and I'm just going to reach down here.
Sure.
And this is one of countless piles that I have. And so
Yeah.
when you say you want the facts, the first thing I do is I pull up the court filing,
Yes.
the criminal complaint, the indictment, the motion that's just been filed, whatever it is, and I try to get through it and absorb it before I begin popping off about it. I'm not always successful because sometimes I'm on air on MSNBC and they're like, breaking news, and they'll literally email it to me while I'm on camera and I'm, trying to skim it, and I'm trying. And the facts are the facts, but you highlight one of the problems today is people don't really give a rat's butt about the facts.
Right.
They selectively, as you say, pick and choose facts, and then they add fiction, and they mold it all into something that proves the point they're trying to prove, or helps the candidate or hurts the candidate they're trying to help or hurt. And, if we can't be on the same page with respect to the facts of these incidents, I don't know how we come back together. I mean, that's why, listen, I admire the people like Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger and not many others who are like, listen, we need to acknowledge what Donald Trump did to this nation on and around January 6th, and we'll argue about policy and ideology and priorities later. But first, we've got to work to save our democracy.
Right.
And, if we're not willing to operate from the same factual platform, it's going to be really hard to bring everything together, or to at least shrink that chasm between one side and another after Kamala Harris gets elected, because that chasm is going to exist. Frankly, it might widen. But, I've always said, Hal, it's not us and them in America. It's just us. It doesn't always feel that way, but it's just us, different flavors, different kinds of us with different priorities and different ideologies. But let's get back to it being us, and all believing that, freedom and democracy and the American way of life, giving everybody an opportunity to succeed, is important to all of us. And then we can argue about the priorities, about how to get there, right?
Right.
So, how we begin to shrink that chasm, I wish I had answers to questions like that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we've been dealing with this for years of like rolling news stories and people kind of making up details as they come in, or a misheard or misunderstood moment in a filing or in something that happened or in a reporting of it gains its own steam. It starts to snowball and become kind of buried in the giant snowball of the story as part of it, like almost an accidental fact, which is not true at all. And sometimes those have such legs. I know I only have you for another few minutes or so, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on the DOJ charges against the RT people and the FARA violation stuff, because
you read my mind.
Yeah, I found this very heartening, and apparently there's going to be more charges coming. I feel a lot of flop sweat at the Blaze these days.
You read my mind, because as I was going through my rant about facts and alternative facts, that's exactly what I was thinking. Listen, and because let's face it, the Russians and foreign influence and bad actors are making it that much harder for people to understand what is fact and what is fiction. So I was thrilled to see all of the indictments against the Russians and indictments against at least a couple of folks here in the United States. This is not a beef, but I think it's something that we kind of have to dig down a little bit. So we spend a lot of time at the Department of Justice investigating crimes that are committed overseas, albeit against the United States in one form or another, right? Like the Russians putting out all of this disinformation designed to, infiltrate the American system and psyche and cause division and misdirect us. We spent a lot of time indicting a lot of folks like that, and it's important, but we know we're never going to prosecute them because we have no extradition treaty or agreement with Russia. And so Whereas it's important, what's equally important, I'm not going to say more important, is to make sure we get our arms around all of the actors in the US who are complicit in what Russia is putting into the United States to try to poison us,
Right.
holding them accountable, even if they are ruling class criminals running platforms with millions or billions of dollars at their disposal. We need to get them charged, because the only way you deter this kind of conduct and you deter tomorrow's aspiring oligarch who wants to try to destroy one party is to prosecute people. That is how you deter others from going down the same criminal path. That's why I am always harping on you have to apply the rule of law fully and fairly to Donald Trump,
Right.
not only to punish Donald Trump for his crimes, but to deter tomorrow's aspiring day one dictator. Because absent actual accountability, which looks like a prison term for Donald Trump in New York on his 34 felony convictions, absent actual accountability, then the next aspiring dictator is going to be emboldened. They're not going to be deterred. It's like, look at everything Donald Trump did, and he got away with it. Home detention. He's not going to prison. In other words, he's sentenced to spend time at Mar-a-Lago and binge watch Netflix and order DoorDash. That's his punishment. Where do I sign up? I want to be a day one dictator. I want to follow his blueprint so I can go home and order DoorDash. That's no kind of way to deter tomorrow's criminals. So that's why I'm glad we're going after Russians and any foreign actors who are committing crimes against the United States. We've got to get our arms around all of the actors in our country who are complicit in disseminating that disinformation, that propaganda, those lies.
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of people like, the DOJ has been very good at starting to roll people up in this stuff. So yes, we can't, obviously, we're never going to get our hands on Kalishnikov or Office Novaya, the people that they charged, because at this point, we don't even know if Putin's let them live. They may be pushed out a window the minute they're indicted, so they never get to even a chance one day to tell what they know and what they did. So we can't count on that. But it dries up the money in the United States and the channels by which it comes through. It lets us know exactly that those channels, when they were open, were illegal, and that everybody that participated in that was committing a crime. Yes, and that those people, then they start rolling up those people. So Lauren Chen and her husband, who are running Tenet Media out of Nashville, clearly knowing we're billing the Russians. They're saying literally in their Discord statements. Thank God these guys are the worst criminals in the world. I really do. I thank my lucky stars that January 6th was run by the biggest bunch of idiots, because if they had a brain cell between them, we'd be a different country right now. Because because of the benefits you're talking about, where they could have taken advantage of our kind of slow rolling system to just claim the government and then keep it there, but they were too stupid to even take the W's that they had, thank God. Same thing is true of these folks. They were so ham-handed and out in the open because they somehow think, maybe this is part of it, they think because Donald Trump is above being imprisoned, that there's just maggots get a pass or something, or the right wing is protected because anybody under Trump can just squeal unfair and the Justice Department will leave them alone. Turns out that's not the case, and it's causing
not the case. We're going after the boots of the insurrection, Donald Trump's foot soldiers, the people he told to attack the Capitol and stop the certification, fight like hell or you won't have a country anymore. And I love that he said stop the steal, not the certification, because that provides evidence of Donald Trump's criminal intent, because he knew it wasn't stolen. All of his executive branch officials and agencies had told him that. But here's the thing, Hal. We're going after the boots of the insurrection, and we're doing a darn good job of it. All of my friends and former colleagues at the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C. are prosecuting those cases.
Right.
But the whole command structure of the insurrection, the suits of the insurrection, the hierarchy, not one federal charge has been brought against any of them. Heck, some of the states are charging them, trying to clean up a federal mess. Why 4 years later? Why? That's a real problem. That's not deterring the command structure from assembling for another try. So, that I have, again, a problem with how the Department of Justice is selectively going after some and not others. We need to go after everybody, even if you are rich, white, privileged, influential, connected, political. We need to get them too when they commit crimes against our democracy.
Right. Really appreciate it, Glenn. Thanks for coming on. I know you got a bolt, and I appreciate you coming on and helping us work through some of these things, especially just, building that patience towards, you want these charges to stick most of all. The most important thing is not that you charge quickly or in a way that feels emotionally satisfying, but that that this stuff gets stitched together and the stitches can hold. And I think we're really in a position where that seems to be happening. So I've got a lot of faith in this, as frustrated as I can be, and a lot of people can be. So I want to thank you for being on here. Now, I want to tell everybody, if you want more depth around these stories as you see them on your TV and passing through your shitter feed or any of these other places, please go to Glenn's YouTube channel and subscribe and watch his videos, and he will help break down these things for you so that you have a depth of awareness that maybe other people don't have. So thanks so much.
Al, let me say, just for take another minute, because I appreciate all of the nice things you say about my work and my legal analysis. I want to take a minute to say I've been plugged into Stephanie and the Sexy Liberal Tour, and I get to stand, backstage waiting for my 5 minutes to go out and talk about legal issues of the day. And I am so grateful that I get to play with the fun kids, with you, with Fugelsang, with Frangela, and obviously with Steph. And to say, the political commentary from all of you all is brilliant. It's hilarious, and it's brilliant, and it's insightful, and it's energizing and motivating. So to the extent anybody hasn't come out to see the Sexy Liberal Tour, you all, I sit back there and I laugh my ass off. And then I come up to you afterwards. I'm like, oh, dude, I love this, and I love this, and I love that.
Yeah.
And the same
True
with
story.
Fugelsang and Frangela and Steph. It's like, it's such a joy and a pleasure for me. I'm kind of a comedy junkie, but never had it in me to take the stage and tell jokes. But
Sure.
I just can't recommend it highly enough to anybody who has not come out. I've been to several of the shows, and I'm going to try to make a few more coming up in the future.
Great.
So they are genius, and they're energizing, and they're mobilizing. So I appreciate what you guys do.
Awesome. Thank you so much, brother. And I look forward to seeing you at the whichever next one you end up meeting at. It's always a pleasure when we go, oh, Glenn's here. Yay. Like you feel like, okay, this is going to be a really hot Q&A at the end of the show. I know it's going to be rock solid if you're there. So I really appreciate you doing that. So thanks so much, brother.
Thanks, Al. See you soon.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. Cheers. And there he goes, ladies and gentlemen. Glenn Kirshner. Come on. Giving us some insight into it, and I hope it helps you. And by the way, Philip Bittner will be joining us in the next hour. I know Glenn had to go because I think he's doing a MSNBC spot or something like that. So just check out his YouTube channel and subscribe. And and hi, how are you? Good to see you. I just drove back from LA after singing last night. I left the whiskey at 12:40 in the morning, 1 o'clock, basically 1 o'clock. By the time I get on the freeway, it's 1 o'clock. And it's a 4-hour drive. So you do the math. And my show is at 9 a.m. my time, which means up at something in the morning. And everybody's like, your hair is so much longer. No, it isn't. I flat ironed it last night for the show. I just felt like doing it. Just part and parcel of the show last night. I couldn't do anything with it, so I just went for the flat iron or this. I straightened it out, and it's still curled up over time. Also, my birthday is not today; it's a week from today. It is the 25th of September. A week from today is my birthday. Some people are saying happy birthday and stuff, and I appreciate that very, very much. My birthday is also, Mark Hamill's birthday is also my mother's birthday, because I was born on my mom's birthday. So that automatically, and by a twist of fate, created a tradition in my family that I passed on to my son, even though he wasn't born on his mother's birthday, that on your birthday, you give your mama a gift. Now, that was easy for me because it was also her birthday. So I always did that. It was my mom's birthday and my birthday, so we both gifts were exchanged. But I believe every child should give their mom a gift on their birthday. And if you have new kids or you got grandkids or any of that kind of stuff, I would suggest you start that as a tradition from scratch. And it's because it builds the respect and love is already there, but it builds a kind of, it deepens it. So there you go. Hal, where's Chip? Chip is laying on the stairs right over there. I may run and get him at some point at the end of the show. We'll see. But yeah, and like I said, Phil will be joining us in the second hour in about 9 minutes or so. Today, I don't know what the Federal Reserve is talking about a rate cut today. We do not know how much it is going to be. It's expected to occur today, and so everybody's waiting for that roll through. And Trump addressed it at his little weird town hall thing that he did with Sarah Huckster Sanders. Hold on. Let me bring in the chat, by the way. Hi, chat room. I don't want you to feel left out. He brought it up like they're going to do it just for the politics of it or something. It has nothing to do with that. The timing, ironically, is because the job market was too hot for too long, and it took them too long to get to it. They would have gotten to it a lot earlier and started lowering it earlier in the year and could have lowered it by a lot more. Yeah, the guesstimate is either a quarter or a half point. I'm going to go, because they've been so cautious with a quarter point, with the idea that they might do another quarter point in December or something like that. But they are, high enough that a half point wouldn't be out of the question. And that they've been this way for a long time. They just don't want to kick inflation into overdrive, which they won't do. Like, again, these motherfuckers, I swear to God, we do not have monetary inflation in this country. You assholes. You money printer go burr. We're printing too much money. There's too much money in circulation, blah, blah, blah. We don't. We had supply shock after COVID. That's what we had. And again, there was a $20 trillion hit, minimum. Some say as high as $22 or $23 trillion hit on the U.S. economy. And you don't plug a $20 trillion hole with $9 trillion. There is no way that you flood the market with too much money when $20 trillion evaporated in a couple of months. It's silly. It's so aggravating. And these Volckerites who are like, well, last time we had inflation like this, well, we fixed it this way. Like, the last time you had it, it wasn't caused by a giant pandemic, asshole. Not even close. All of our recessions are caused by an oil spike, whatever the cause of that oil spike was. And the fact that we haven't had a recession speaks to the fact that that there wasn't primarily inflation. There wasn't monetary inflation. Jesus Christ. Anyways, thank you for that, Mark. Let me see if I can. Mark is posting Trump social. Shit. This is so good. Look at this. Look at that. Ouch. God damn. Look at Apple right above it, up 4 points. And then there's DJT, Trump Media and Technology Group Corp, 1581, down $2 since yesterday. Jesus Christ. And he's trying this pump and dump, so every time it drops, they try to push some money into it. But it's not worth a fuck. It's not worth anything. It isn't worth anything. There's nothing worthwhile it's not worth anything. It has no value. It is not making money. It is losing money all the time. Oh, and in the background chat room, here comes Philip Bittner. I see him coming in. We'll get him early. That's a lovely thing. Give me 1 second, and I will put him in here. And we'll get started on this stuff because Lord knows there's a ton of news happening there as well. And 3, 2, 1. Could it possibly be? There he is. Excellent. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Phil. How are you, my friend? First and foremost, yes. How are you?
All right, all things considered.
Yes.
Summer is definitely over.
Oh yes, it's
firmly
starting
moving into autumn.
Yeah, we had a big
rainy
like
day
somebody.
today.
Yeah, it's like we threw a switch here in Vegas that it literally went from like we had our first 100 days over 100 in a long, since the 60s or something like that. And then it just turned off like a light switch, and it's going to be like high of 70, low of 52. Yeah.
Yeah, Vegas in autumn and winter, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So,
right.
At one point, you'll get one of those desert downpours, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. So a bunch of stuff obviously going on, and the ongoing. I think Friday the DOJ is going to announce more charges against the Russia Today folks and their ancillaries. And so we'll talk a little bit about that, of course, and then I guess the extension of long range weapons. There was the whisper about that and the conversation about that seemed to be happening, and now it's just kind of, again, they're not trying to draw too much attention. Yeah, they're trying not to draw too much attention to it, it seems. Yes? Yeah. Oh, thank you, Colleen.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of anticipate, there had been hope that when Keir Starmer was meeting with Joe Biden, the Prime Minister of Britain, that the announcement would come then, because one of the things that's already here is a British cruise missile called the Storm Shadow, and they want to be able to use that to fire deeper in. And the Brits seem ready to go with it, but the meeting came and went, and nope. So some disappointment there. That's causing a lot of anxiety here. But they did strike pretty deep into Russia, European Russia, so west of the Ural Mountains, at a place called Toropets in Tver, where there was apparently some sort of massive ammunition dump, and the explosion was huge, a mushroom cloud. So that's tens of thousands potentially of Ukrainian lives that won't be dying as a result of Russian munitions, but they're still outpacing us. That's the problem. Is they're on a war economy footing, and we're not, and so they're still producing more munitions than we are. But having said that, it's still nice to see a big mushroom cloud in a Russian city.
Yeah, see if I can bring up
kill you.
Yeah, I'll show everybody. Like, seriously.
Yep, there it is.
That is not a nuke, ladies and gentlemen. That is a UAV striking an ammo dump / compound, and triggering. And there's also see the little one over here. That's further away, but like the impact from this was so extraordinary. Like the blast wave from all this stored ammo was so huge, it triggered explosions at other ammo dumps nearby.
You see it on the right there. Oh, from my screen right.
Yes.
You see that as well. I mean, it's just
look at
whatever they had there.
Jesus. Boom. Yeah, and you could
whatever they had stored there was. Now, I personally am hoping that's where they were storing their Iskander missiles, because that's what I'm worried. I'm worried we're going to get pelted with those. I suspect tonight. So we are talking at 8 p.m. our time.
Yeah.
I suspect early morning our time here, we'll get a response. Get the Russians tend, not always, because they like causing the anxiety. They're terrorists. They are. Russia is a terrorist state. I mean, its intent is to cause terror and anxiety amongst the people of Ukraine. So they may or may not, but I think there's a strong chance we're going to get pelted.
Sure.
Overnight or early morning, because that's when they really love to get us. Is just when we're, at the tail end of deep sleep, and right before rush hour sort of thing, right before folks are getting up and getting ready for work, is when they tend to, like 3 a.m, 5 a.m. kind of thing.
Yeah,
we'll see. So, not necessarily, but
so this is Toropets, the town.
Part of the deal.
This is the town near that ammo dump. This is not from these buildings being struck by UAVs or Ukrainian munitions or anything. These are just shockwave explosions that just knocked all the windows out, and all that stuff. There's another one of these, I think. Yeah, this is. Yeah, they're just kind of driving around the town, just seeing all the windows blown out and that kind of stuff.
Blown in.
I mean, huge.
I mean, all my windows in my apartment, in one room, are taped up. You know, like you'd see in old World War II movies of the Blitz,
right?
Because you don't want that glass shattering.
Yeah.
And sending little deadly shards flying everywhere. So I've got one of my rooms that only has a few windows that's sealed up like that. And if something were to happen, all my other rooms have multiple walls with windows. Yeah. So I'd have to tape up everything. But my thinking is that if the worst happens and the windows get blew out, I could put cardboard up on all the others, and then in the room with the masking, I could secure that and heat that just that one room. So, but that's how we live in Kiev. But yeah, the shockwave, people don't think about this when they think about explosions, because of course you see the massive fireball, but shockwaves can be just as deadly. Yeah,
especially if there's glass or it's like a hurricane. Yeah. You know,
And really big explosions, really big explosions, like Mother of All Bombs or Moab.
Moabs. Yeah.
Not to get too graphic, but they also then they create a vacuum. So there'll be an initial blast wave out, but because of the intensity and the scale of the explosion, there will then be a vacuum that draws in air. And again, not to get too graphic, but if you're caught in that blast wave, when the oxygen rushes in to replace the vacuum, it can literally
pull your insides out.
It can kill you. Yeah, it'll rip your insides out. Yeah.
Yeah. It like deadly your lungs can come out through
your
mouth.
We're ingenious creatures. What a piece of work is man.
Well, I mean, we haven't figured out how to like those.
It is what it
is. Those parasite hornets or whatever. Mind control or like the funguses mind control. Hornets up to the top of a plant and just stand there so they can be eaten by a bird, so the bird can shit it out and spread the fungus everywhere so that it can zombify other ones. I mean. Yeah, we're not alone in this. We're just our stuff has a lot of mechanics to it. Monkeys with sticks.
We're just ingenious with it. Yeah.
Yes, we are.
I mean, to recall that, what's the full? What is the full graph there from Hamlet? What a piece of work is man! How noble in faculty! How I'm forgetting it. But Shakespeare makes a good point with that soliloquy in Hamlet. It's like we are capable of wonderful, wonderful things. We are also capable
of terrible things,
ingenious ways of killing one another.
That's right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Allegedly, that place that blew up had 30 tons of ammunition in it, and
that's a 30-ton explosion.
Yeah. Right. It's and an order of magnitude. So maybe the equivalent of a 3 megaton explosion.
I guess that'd be a 3 megaton.
Yeah, it'd be a 3 megaton, which is half the size of the Hiroshima bomb, but not that we know of, not radioactive, because they may have had God knows what stored there. As far as the force multiplier of the impact blast is what I'm talking about. So there are a couple of things, obviously. Talk a little bit, if you could, about Turkey, if you know. And their sort of sudden, I mean, not so sudden, but they've really turned on Russia in the last little bit in a way that it's quite refreshing.
Well, I haven't seen anything in the last 24 hours or so, but recently Erdogan himself came out and said Crimea is Ukrainian.
Yes.
Which is really significant on a lot of different levels, because the Crimean Tatars, the the indigenous people of the Crimean Peninsula,
yes,
are Turkic. They're Turkic. They're Muslim Turkic peoples. And for a Turkish leader to come out, I mean, that's what the Crimean War was about in the 19th century in so many different ways, is that the Ottoman Empire was falling apart and they fought over Crimea. But for a Turkish leader to come out and say Crimea is Ukrainian is significant not only for Russia, which of course is not going to like that because they think they own Crimea, and that it is their God-given right to have dominion over the Black Sea. But again, for a Turkish leader to say, a piece of territory in which the indigenous people are Turkic is by rights, part of a mostly Orthodox country, controlled in Kiev, is pretty shocking. Pretty shocking. So the worm is turning. I mean, I don't know what motivated him to do that, but whatever it was,
it also wasn't by itself. Because the reason I bring it up is because there was this other thing where, and it's not the first time Turkey's banks have done this, but it's significant that within a couple of days of him making that announcement about Crimea being Ukraine's, Turkish banks started blocking payments from the Russian Federation to Europe, specifically. Like they started clamping down on Russia trying to route money through Turkey, taking advantage of kind of their economy being on its heels a little bit. And Turkey knows that it can't side with Russia and allow this stuff to come through. And if Russia wants to make it look like it's a relatively comfortable stooge for Russia, it's hard for it to help it recover its economy as it's, been struggling over the last little bit. Again, in Turkey, the under the table there, it's got the Turkish lira is, I guess, still in existence, but it's not doing very well. And really the economy runs on mostly US dollars and euros. It is like 80% US dollars, 20% euros under the table moving around. And that's how people are buying and selling things on a balanced scale. So I would imagine they don't want that money to dry up, to get
and also Turkey was still kind of one place where Russians could go, but people also forget there's a long history of animosity between Russia and Turkey in the 19th century. Aside from the Crimean War, they fought a series of wars as the Ottoman Empire was collapsing in and on itself.
Yeah,
the Russians were taking advantage, so they were trying to push. They fought like three. I want to say, don't hold me to this exactly, but I think it's 3 successive wars. Like one in 1 decade, another 5 years later, then another in like 15 years after that, as they tried to push along the northern embankment of the Black Sea, with the obvious intent of ultimately trying to take Istanbul, turn it back into Constantinople. Not to put they might be giants in
giants,
your head.
Right? Too late.
Look, they have asked, as crazy as this sounds in the 21st century, there's still a part of Russia that desires to have Constantinople. It is the head of Orthodox Christianity in the world. I mean, it still is. When this whole kerfuffle started with the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, do you remember that, Hal?
Yeah.
Where they banned Kiev banned churches and representatives of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church because they're beholden to a patriarch
in Russia, right?
In Moscow, and the Ukrainians said, "We don't want that. Obviously, Russia is our enemy. We don't want a KGB guy telling the faithful what to do." So they had to go to Constantinople. I'm 90% sure it was Constantinople. You might also be down in Jerusalem as well, but it was the Orthodox. There's a guy who does this. He's kind of the, and I'm not an expert on religion, but he's kind of the ombudsman Christian orthodoxy, and they had to appeal to him, and he went, "Okay, you can have your own patriarch, and you can have your own Orthodox Church," and that's because of this whole issue with Constantinople having been the head of an empire which we completely forget existed, the Byzantine Empire. For centuries and centuries, there was a stable post-Roman empire on the eastern shores of the Med and the Black Sea that was totally viable and had hundreds, if not millions, well, I'm sure millions of citizens in the Byzantine Empire. It was when the Ottomans, what would become the Ottomans, took Constantinople and turned it into Istanbul, that we now associate it with Islam. But for centuries, the place was the center of the Orthodox Church. And so, not to get, again, I guess I got into a history lesson there,
okay,
but that's why having a guy in Turkey say Crimea is Ukrainian is a big deal. It's a big deal.
And Mr. Hobbs in our chat said he saw quite a few Russians in Turkey when he was there in January. Istanbul is a big cosmetic surgery destination for Russians. Apparently, Turkey is is the nose job and boob job place to go, kind of like the Brazil of Europe, in that regard.
It's so bizarre.
Can I also say
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I was going to go on another tirade or a long story about. I once went on a trip when I was living in Moscow. I once went on a trip, packaged holiday with Russians, and that's so bizarre.
Oh damn!
Russian tourists. I'm on a Russian tourism package at a compound just outside of Batman, and it was nuts. It was nuts.
Yeah.
Russian tourists.
I got to say, I oftentimes when I'm traveling around, if I'm on a cruise ship or something like that, I'm always very grateful for German tourists, because as much shit as Americans catch, Germans are such dicks that it makes the rest of us all look good by comparison. Yeah, they're such dicks. Really I don't know why. So real quick, this is my favorite detail about the story we were sharing earlier. About the ammo.
Well, I hadn't heard the bomb proof.
Yes, that Putin had declared it bomb proof, which is probably my favorite detail of the Toropets ammo depot blowing up. Just huge. Yeah.
All that ammunition that will not kill Ukrainian children.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, exactly. And again, that's what you're striking deep inside, and that's what I think the case. You're seeing the case being made. You're seeing the politics and the tacticians of war showing, like, look, if you let us strike further in, this is the kind of shit we're going to hit. And they've got all this stuff, and we don't want to hit apartment buildings. We're not interested in schools. We're not even interested in the office buildings that run the Russian war machine. We're interested in their military sites, bases, missile launch areas, ammo storage, airfields.
They really want to stop those planes.
Yeah. So, and I think that you can continue to make that case. Now, by the way, somebody just, Play Every Day just brought up, how about those pagers? So you have some experience in the Middle East, and we got to talk about this story about the... So for those that don't know, there was a coordinated attack, I guess you'd call it, sabotage trick played on the Hezbollah, fighters, that they were all assigned new pagers and new radios. And like 2 days ago, they all blew up, killing and injuring, hundreds of these Hezbollah fighters, in some cases blowing huge holes in their sides or in their crotches, wherever they were carrying that pager on themselves. And good Lord, like and how they managed to do it, or how they wired it to, I guess, overheat the battery. I mean, it literally could simply be that they all bought these new ones with these shit batteries in them, and they all just exploded because they were all on the same timetable. But they were so to the moment, it seemed like the Israelis figured
certainly
out.
Looked coordinated.
Yeah.
It's too early to say exactly what this was,
and
but
who.
it is, and who and how.
Yeah. Because holy shit.
But I mean, you've seen the hospital footages, I'm sure, of like, it is not a coincidence that there are dozens of guys coming into the ER, all with wounds from something
These
blowing
pagers.
up right around their mid torso.
Yeah.
So something's
and it's
up.
Bad.
Somebody pulled something, really tricky. There. Now I got no love for Hezbollah. I spent time with Hezbollah in southern Beirut.
Mm-hmm.
They are. Well, I was almost going to make an analogy that probably would have gotten me in trouble, but oh hell, I'll do it. So at the tail end of the Irish Troubles, one of the big problems with the various militias, whether they were loyalists or Republicans, is that they became criminals. That they had a vested interest in the war and the conflict continuing because they were profiting financially from it, and I see that in Hezbollah a lot.
Right.
If you go down into like the Bekaa in southern Lebanon, these guys want for nothing, and they run the territory like they're little fiefdoms. So I got no love for Hezbollah. So boo-hoo.
Yes. So here's the story. This is what I was able to find, in relation to this kind of the newest information. Many of the affected pagers in Tuesday's attacks, and they're calling it a flat-out attack now, were from a new shipment that Hezbollah had received recently, part of a nearly year-long process to swap out older devices. The group said they detonated in rough unison at 3:30 p.m. on Tuesday, and survivors reported hearing the pagers beep and displaying a series of numbers on their screens about 5 seconds before they detonated. According to people familiar with Hezbollah's investigation, the initial assessment is the pagers detonated because an explosive device was planted in the new models. The scenario indicates Israel found its way into Hezbollah's supply chain to modify the devices that were delivered, though the aims of the alleged Israeli operation remain unclear. I don't know that it's unclear. I mean, if you could hobble all their entire communications, make them afraid to have communication devices, because, by the way, everybody's like, it was 8:008. 135, right? The reason they're like, yeah, this is a coordinated attack is because right after that, walkie-talkies blew up yesterday, and they had new batteries that had arrived in a recent shipment and had been distributed to a narrow range of Hezbollah members, narrower range than the pagers. People with familiar with the matter said, but the people who were hit when the radios blew up were Hezbollah was hit by another wave of exploding devices as walkie-talkies used by the group blew up in homes, cars, and operatives' hands across Lebanon on Wednesday. The militant group was scrambling to assess the extent and nature of the explosions, which came a day after thousands of pagers carried by Hezbollah members exploded at roughly the same time, injuring more than 2,800 people and killing 12. Details emerging from the investigation. That's the part, the complex attack. But the idea was that these radios were higher up the chain. So the low-level guys got the pagers, the higher up the chain guys got the radios, and the damage from the radios was worse. Because they were bigger, and I want to say I saw a picture earlier of it, because some of these things, like if you're laying it next to something that's flammable or explosive itself, or you have, God forbid, a suicide vest, or you have a gun nearby, or what have you, that when it blows up, it triggers something else. That you had a bunch of these things triggering. This is from one of the walkie-talkies blowing up. Triggering explosion inside a whatever this cafe where they were meeting was. And one major concern for Hezbollah, was that the attack has exposed the identities of many of their operatives and commanders. The group has been struggling with information leaks and informants on the ground, a security gap that has helped Israel kill hundreds of Hezbollah militants since the exchange of fire began last October. When after Hamas attacked, Hezbollah followed it up because they thought, oh, we'll join in this from the north. And they've been trying to temper what they're doing.
It takes one Mossad agent in one hospital,
right?
Just be sitting there and going, "Oh, he came in with an injury from one of these. He's with Hez."
Yep. And everybody, and now we know who he talks to, and who they talk. Right. And you're talking about 2,800 casualties from from the pagers alone. Like this kind of like asymmetrical.
I don't care. Love them or hate them, man. You got to admit the Mossad is incredibly good at their job.
Yeah. And in a way,
that is a sharp move.
Right. And like, what a way to target fighters and communication, out the fighters that they're dealing with.
Command
in some
and control,
cases,
logistics.
All of it. And like, are you if they're gonna pass out new communication devices of any sort, cell phones, smartphones, any of that stuff, are you gonna trust it? Are you going to, how many of these guys are going to take a screwdriver to whatever's given to them, right? And maybe even blow themselves up in the process, right? Man, like that.
Yeah, I do want to learn more about it, but
yes,
because I've heard it stated so none of these guys took their pager on a plane or something. How long did they have them for before they?
Right.
There's lots of questions. I don't know.
Sure,
but it's a hell of a thing.
Right.
Hell of a thing.
Yeah. It's stunning. And the fact that it was Tuesday, 3:30, right at the same time, roughly. And then right when they're trying to figure out what the hell is going on, when guys are holding their radios right up to their head for the next day going, okay, well, we're not going to use the cell phone stuff because boom, holy hell.
Yep.
And somebody's asked, do they have pay phones over there? Yes, they do. And they're going to be using them, no doubt. There is hold on. So our dear friend Orban, Viktor Orban, very tough, powerful, tough, smart guy, big fan.
That's your character reference.
That guy, right? Yeah. The pagers were made by a Budapest firm. And so Orban is scrambling to explain himself to Iran, Russia, and Hezbollah right now that they think he was in on it. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Yeah. So,
good story.
Man. Yeah. So,
fascinating story. Something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, the spokesman for Hungary's first name is Zoltan. I'm just saying. That said, that story stuck out to, I think, a lot of people, and it is the closest equivalent we've seen to the strategic intelligence that the Ukrainians are showing in terms of, UAV use. The videos of that stuff are growing day by day as well. Because the other thing, too, is that if you're not going to let us, fire missiles into Russia, you didn't say anything about UAVs, and they're building their own, and they're, some of their UAVs are modified Cessnas. They're just taking an airplane and affixing, a drone setup to the controls and just flying a small aircraft into the country full of explosives, which is more than likely what struck the Toporov or whatever.
Toropets.
Yeah, Toropets.
Toropets
place. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also a signal. I was speaking to somebody about this earlier today. It's also a signal that they're going to do what they're going to do. The Ukrainians. I think they're getting to a point where they don't want. Obviously, they're not going to risk the support of the Western world, but they are also increasingly being like, we're going to hit what we're going to hit, and we have a right to do it, and we don't need your permission. Mm-hmm. We're not going to use your, we've got a growing military industrial complex, growing arms industry here in Ukraine, and there are weapons, and we'll use them as we see fit. There is apparently a list that has been put together by the Ukrainians, and they are in communication with the U.S. and saying, all right, look, this is exactly what as you mentioned earlier. But the attitude remains that without risking the partnership, which of course is vital for Ukraine's existence and continuing to be able to fight this war, but they are increasingly like, okay, the incursion into Kursk, the invasion into Russian, that was not, they didn't run that by the White House apparently. Initial reports that maybe Lloyd Austin had been consulted have turned out to be not true. Though we didn't know. We didn't know they were going to do that, and partly because sadly, we haven't had a good history with keeping Ukrainian secrets. Mm-hmm. So they are more and more getting of the mentality of we're going to do what we're going to do, and hopefully we can negotiate longer range strikes with these weapons that we've been given, the cruise missiles and the ATACMS in particular.
Right.
But even if we don't get them, we've got drones. We've got drone techno. We probably some of the best drones being built in the world, and how to utilize them is right here in Ukraine. So they're going to use those.
Yeah.
I wish we were better allies. I wish we were being more, open to the idea of letting them, because I mean, they can fire anywhere in the world, anywhere in the country. Mm-hmm. The Russians, they can fire all the way to Lviv,
right?
And to say to the Ukrainians, you just got to kind of take it,
yeah,
because the Russians have nukes. Is that dog won't hunt,
right? One of the big stories, obviously, that we've been following is the DOJ charges against Russia today, and their not only their attempted manipulation of media and all that kind of stuff, the stuff you would expect from them, but also having basically a cyber hacking team, which it should come as no surprise that if you have a largely internet-based channel that's not on regular television in the United States, as RT to and USA, the whatever their RT America, they were largely just an internet-based thing, kind of like InfoWars or something like that. That on site at their New York offices, they had a giant IT department and a huge server farm that they would use to keep their programs on the air and all that kind of stuff, that they were also clearly using for cyber attacks on the United States as a bounce point for all that kind of stuff, because it would be no surprise that their servers ping with Russia all the time, right? Why would anybody be surprised? And then they just use that to cover the information and malware and other stuff that they could get into the country. And that's exactly what they were doing. So we get this report that the U.S. government has filed charges against these Russians that we're working with a couple of Canadians, actually. Lauren Chen and her husband are Canadian, living in Tennessee, running this tenant media thing. They've got, Dave Rubles.
Tim Pool, Benny Johnson.
Yeah.
Who I find particularly reprehensible.
Yep.
Dave Rubin.
Mm-hmm. Who we call Dave Rubles now.
Lauren Southern.
Yeah. And who's also Canadian, I believe. But anyways, everybody's been waiting for, there are more charges coming out. But I think one of the things that points to the fact that this is ongoing and that the Justice Department is knocking on a lot of doors and having a lot of very frank conversations, especially leading up to the election, is this story right here, which is Meta has banned Russian state media from social networks. So Russia today had 7.9 million Facebook followers on Facebook, on all the Meta platforms. on their Instagram and all that stuff, and they have been officially bounced. That is
and they are pissed
off. Oh my God. Yeah, so it's
Russians
Peskov.
are furious.
Yeah, so Dmitry Peskov.
A hit dog gonna holler.
Yeah, yep. He said, with these actions, Meta discredits itself, which is just like, fuck off, dude. Such selective
hey, you
actions.
know who we should ask about this? You know who we should ask about this is the creator of RT, Mikhail Lesin. Oh, no, wait, we can't. Because he was killed in a D.C. hotel right before he was going to talk to law enforcement. It was law enforcement.
Yeah, he fell down and bonked. And he fell down stairs and bonked his head.
Repeatedly.
Juggling. He was juggling hammers, and he decided to walk down a flight of stairs drunk. And somebody, just to be nice, cleaned up the hammers. But with these actions, Meta discredits itself. Such selective action against the Russian mass media are unacceptable. This complicates the prospects of normalizing our relations with Meta. Fuck off, dude. Nobody cares. What do you mean normalizing?
Margarita Simonian is losing her mind.
Right. Oh, God, it's so good. Yeah. And,
it's beautiful. It's so fantastic.
I think that's not just them kind of waking up on their own. Meta is having phone calls from the DOJ going, hey, we're not going to tell you what to do with any American-based accounts. But any foreign account that's posting shit on the U.S. side of things, we're getting pretty close to requiring some sort of a digital firewall around, from state media. Either you got to mark it as such, or you got to bounce it. And if you're and the reason, by the way, Meta banned them was specifically because they had here it is. This is their statement. After careful review, we have expanded our current measures against Russian state media. Rossiya Sogdanya, RT, and other related organizations are now banned from our apps worldwide for activities related to foreign interference. The statement said, and it's because
Rossiya Sogdanya is just Russia Today and Russian.
Yeah, the idea is that they use these media sites to they use deception tactics to carry out covert online influence operations. That they were, creating fake accounts that said, "Yeah, I'm John from Illinois. I believe what you're believing as well," and is
Did
great.
you know Kamala Harris? She is liking the borscht, but she is liking it with the flesh of human babies.
That's right. She's drinking she's adrenochrome addict. I read this on totally real site, not at all created by American police officer from Florida living in Russia with 140 fake newspaper sites. That fucking guy who they went after earlier this year. There's a chain of this shit. I have to say, there's this. There's you can.
Well,
these
look,
are
where did the
dominoes.
protocols of the Elders of Zion come from? That was
right.
That was Russian disinformation in World War One.
Where'd the story in the Times of India that CIA created AIDS and released it in Africa come from? Right out of the Kremlin.
Yep.
Got our good old friends in the Kremlin.
They're really good at this. Well, I say they're really good at it.
Yeah.
They can be pretty ham-fisted, and sometimes you can, once you kind of know how to, once you see their MO, you can see it coming. But they do a lot of that. I mean, there's a reason why because
it works.
It was called before it was called gaslighting. It was often called a Potemkin village. It's if they can control your sense of reality, they can lead you by the nose wherever they want to go. And they study us more than anybody else in the world. I mean, our State Department and our Pentagon has a Southeast Asia desk. It has a Central Asia desk. It has a South America desk. It has a desk and a that desk and people who specialize. The vast majority of what the Russians specialize in and focus on is us. The United States, they are laser focused on understanding us and figuring out ways to mess with our minds. And so that's what they did. And that's what they have been doing. I mean, there's a reason why, and I'm a journalist. I believe 100% in the freedom of the press and in freedom of speech. But there's a difference between otherwise, and as somebody, as a comic, your your tool is language, right?
Yeah.
That's how you. So you understand the importance of language. In the English language, there would not be a need for two separate terms if there was not a difference between these things. There would not be free speech and there would not be information warfare as terms, because you wouldn't need them, because they would be the same thing, right? Freedom of speech, information warfare, it's all just talk, right? This is information warfare. This is them trying to destabilize our democracies. And I don't know if you saw last week's episode with Jessica Berlin on The Edge. She was fantastic. She was absolutely fantastic on this topic because, they're also, while I say they are laser focused on America, I mean, they're laser focused on breaking us up with our European allies. And part of what they're doing in, say, Germany, because they also do have, there are other areas they pay attention to, but they always see us as their number one enemy. But, she is German American, and she talks on the episode about how, they're constantly under disinformation and misinformation campaigns meant to fracture German society or to break Germans, break the German American alliance or NATO alliance, wherever Western liberal democracies are together. So bye RT. Don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Yeah.
And screw 'em.
Right. And again, I gotta say, it's very odd to me. Like, you, as Americans, you should be able to read and repost all you want openly. I don't care. If you're finding Russia Today's stuff on their website, translating it yourself, posting it online and going, you should watch this, or I believe this, or whatever, that's fine. But they shouldn't, if they are, and they definitely are, setting up bot accounts pretending to be Americans by the tens of thousands on Shitter, and then effectively like artificially boosting them. Clearly that's not covered by free speech. The other thing too is that I don't know where the fuck this, like Tim Pool and Dave Rubin and all these assholes, they seem to miss this one particular kind of important detail, which is that everybody has the freedom of speech, but freedom of speech does not cover Russia paying you to say something or paying for the megaphone you use to say it. Because you and I can stand on a fucking street corner and yell till we're blue in the face about anything we want. That's free speech. The minute somebody goes, hey, I bought you a megaphone so your voice can be louder, or here's my microphone to use, that person is now part and parcel to that free speech. They are sharing in the burden of what I'm saying and the benefits of what I'm saying. If that person is not an American, or worse, is someone posing as an American, then that's a criminal act. If I don't disclose it, or I pretend not to be aware of it. And that's the big thing that I think a lot of these guys miss, and might be what's making them sweat right now and start backpedaling, because they know this, right? They
Good.
Yeah, they're and there's a lot of flop sweat happening as these rolling charges continue to come out, because they know that they are artificially boosted by these bots. They know they rely on them for their viewer numbers. Fucking Rusty Trombone and the Blaze
Musk has turned the single largest social media platform in the world into a place where he says it's freedom of speech, but no, man, you are clearly, upticking stuff that is pro-Kremlin. It's, his ties to the fact that we have a guy with that much power, also sucking off the teat of subsidies for his other industries like Tesla. Or SpaceX, or Starlink, but also in control of this massive platform. And he is. I mean, we've all seen it. Those of us who are still on Twitter. I mean, I have every intention of getting off of it as soon as I possibly can. But I use it to promote the show because it has that reach. But boy, the second I'm able to get off that platform, I will, because it's absolutely, we've all seen it. It's absolutely been corrupted by Musk.
Yeah,
it's darn near useless now.
I mean,
It's
I literally, they're very
pure
like,
propaganda.
Yeah, I don't react to bots and trolls, as you know. By the way, hi trolls. There are some in here, and you're welcome, and thank you for being here because you spread us out in the algorithm in a way that no one else can, and I appreciate you being here. That said,
I'm coming for you. Coming for you.
That's right. Sorry, it's a screaming goat. That's all I got. I guess the primary thing is that I don't react emotionally to them. You know, not that I ever really did, but I don't even bother to get into flame wars the way you used to back in the day, because honest to God, I don't even know, even when situations where I'm like, you used to argue with a troll, someone who's literally, they have no investment, but at least it's a real human being, right? Now they've basically got chatbots running 24/7 that just argue with people and try to divide people. So they're literally designed on the idea that, okay, what will make this person upset and what will make this person suspicious of those around them. It's gross, and it's not even a real person. So I'm not going to argue with a recording, and anymore. Then I would do that.
I'm weaning myself off of it. There's I find very, very little positive stuff.
Sure.
I did, however, when I saw, did you see recently Mehdi Hasan tear apart Jill Stein?
No, but always welcome.
I saw that on Twitter. So so I got a small benefit there. Jill Stein refused to say that Vladimir Putin is a war criminal.
Right.
And dance and would not say it. And Mehdi Hasan, who I run hot and cold with him.
Sure. He banned me he blocked me a long time ago on Twitter, and I still don't know why. No idea. Something I said, and I don't remember ever attacking him about anything. So it's very curious. So,
but anyhow, so he's on with Jill Stein, and he's saying, look, you're willing to call Netanyahu a war crime. We have no problem with that. But why, when you will call Netanyahu a war criminal, you won't call Putin a war criminal? And Jill Stein's humming and hawing, and she's defensive. And she says, at one point she says, well, you don't start a negotiation with somebody by calling them a war criminal. And then Mehdi Hasan's like, well, but you just called Netanyahu a war criminal. So are you not going to have negotiate? Or are you not going to talk to him to try and shut down what he's doing in Gaza? So what, it was a beautiful takedown of her. And she's at best a useful idiot. So that was good to see.
Well, yeah. So,
but aside from that, I rarely, if ever, find Twitter or useful.
I just like it I see the same reactions on there that I see on Truth's Sinkhole when I go over there and visit from the maggots. And so there's some, I'll show you an example right here, if I may. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the newest general election poll. Harris up by 6. The last poll, she was up by 2. This is the debate performance and they're eating the dogs shit starting to work its way through the news cycle. She's up by 6. She's outside the margin of error. This is the general election poll. Stargal says, who banned Hal? Mehdi Hasan. I don't know why. I bet if somebody asked him, he wouldn't even know why he banned me after all this time. It makes no sense. But so Harris was up by 2, now up by 6. And part of this is how, her professional and rock solid performance at the debate. You could tell when they start saying she was so rehearsed. It's like, okay, you mean professional and doing her job like a smart person? Like, that's like saying, I don't know, the prosecutor in this case was they came out with their opening statement and they were like, clearly had worked on it. Like, asshole, it matters.
You're about to go into brain surgery. Who do you want? The person who has prepared for years and years and years, or the guy who's like, just wing it, Right. So,
Yeah, it's so stupid.
And I don't think he gets a boost. I really don't think he gets a boost from all these quote unquote assassination attempts that are happening. That's not going to help him. I mean, firstly, they're all right wingers who are pissed off that he is trying to pivot to the center, because of course he built the Frankenstein monster of all the extremists, being his guys.
Yeah.
And now when he's like, oh shit, I need to get a larger voter base, so I'm going to have to, as you always do in a general, pivot to the center, and these guys can't handle it. I mean, this guy on Sunday, who I think we really should talk about because he was here in Kiev, this Ryan Wesley Ruth guy.
Right.
I mean, first and foremost, he wasn't part of the Legion.
No.
I checked with people in the Legion.
In June, they called him out about it. Well, before this happened, they're like, "This guy's a nutter and an asshole. He's full of shit.
He's an
and he's never been
nutter.
part of." Yeah,
Yeah.
He asked
And
Elon Musk
the
for a
Ukrainians,
rocket.
Yeah, he was going to bring thousands Afghan and Free Syrian Army
Syrians.
soldiers here. Sure.
Yeah.
How are you going to do that? You know.
Yeah.
He was off his rocker. And then, the Ukrainians kind of like placated him for a little bit, but then when his visa was up, they were like, yeah, you got to go.
Yeah.
And I think he resented it. Guys who come here, and I made a little reaction video about this, but I'll reiterate it here. There's something about war that draws people who are mentally unwell.
Yeah.
And this is clearly
puffs,
this
I
is
think
one
is
of
the
them.
clinical term.
This guy was one of them.
Yeah.
And I think he probably came here with some sort of savior complex. And then when they said you're out of your mind and you're more risk than you're worth, so get out of here.
Right.
For somebody who has a savior complex, to have that rejected, and not vindicated as the great, everybody worship me because I'm helping you, is a pretty shocking thing. So I think kind of almost like a Travis Bickle,
right?
When he was refused the ability to fight for Ukraine or to aid in the war effort here, he just redirected his mental illness in another direction. I mean, obviously, I don't know, but this guy was just because he was in Ukraine doesn't mean he had anything to do or anything was happening.
And also talk about Russian misinformation and all that kind of stuff. Like you find these nutters and then you wind them up and send them over and you go, see, look at all the crazy people that support Ukraine. Like, again, how'd this guy afford to fly over? Who was contacting him and said, this is a great idea, especially early on in the war when there were still like Russia-linked people operating everywhere over there, just drawing people over to fuck up the works, essentially. So the other thing I wanted to show everybody in that polling thing real quick that we went to, this is a breakdown of where the polling is going. Blue being Harris is up, red being Trump is up, right? Rural, Trump is winning rural by 62%, which is the minority of the human beings in the actual country. She's got 38% though. 40%, almost 40%. That's growth. 50 suburban and urban, where all the actual people are, 55 and 65%. She's running away with it. Age groups. Trump is winning one group, 65 and over, by 2 points within the margin of error. He's got 51, she's got 49. That's nothing. That's not a measurable difference, a meaningful difference at all driving there. But look at 18 to 29, Harris 59%. 30 to 49, Harris 54%. 50 to 64, 53%. She's fucking trouncing him. 58% of females in the country versus him getting 42. Males, 46-54, a spread, but not the, a tighter spread in this situation. This is not the same, he's not she's running away with the female vote. He's not running away with the male vote like he had previously. Democrats, obviously 86%. I don't know who the fuck these 14% of Democrats who are allegedly voting for Trump is, but that's hilarious. 16% of Republicans, which is a higher margin than he has of Democrats, of course. He's got 84%. And then 52% to 48% of independents, white, black, and Latino. He's got 56% of whites. Again, not the runaway number he had before, right? Which was like closer to 58. Tightening as we get closer to the election. 88% of black voters, 53% of Latino voters, outside the margin of error. Income. This is the fascinating part. Trump has low-income voters, 52 to 48. Again, a marginal split. 49-51 for middle-income voters. He's up 51 to 49. These are within the margin of error and not meaningful. Neither one of them is running away with either group. High-income people, though, 58 Harris to 42. These are the people that know that Trump is going to wreck the economy, and are educated, smart enough, and have enough invested in the country that they know even if they'll benefit from his tax cuts, he will fuck the place up. And then education, of course, again, almost the same breakdown for income. Not this huge runaway he had before. It's 49-51 for high school. Some college 48-52. And, a bachelor's degree or higher, 58% to Harris. Trump is like losing his grip on the ill-educated, poor voter that he used to have. These margins are dick. Like 49-51, please.
And watch him spin.
Oh, yeah. So this is
He's going to get more and more irrational. He's going to come off more and more unhinged. She is going to play him like a fiddle, even if they don't have another debate.
Yeah. Just trigger him and trigger him.
Trigger him and trigger him and trigger him. I'm sure that Moscow will try their tricks. Who knows? What an October surprise, if there is going to be one, will look like. But as she starts to distance herself, and as that gap gets wider, he's going to get more and more unstable.
Yes,
and I don't think he can pull. Look, I live over here. I don't live there anymore. But I don't think he can pull the whole "it's rigged." He can't pull the January 6th. You see him starting to do it already. I mean, he's prepping the ground for I'm not losing. It's being stolen from me. I don't know if the country is ready to entertain that again. I certainly hope not. But he's going to get more and more unhinged and irrational because.
Well, for two reasons. One, he can't.
That line in the debate was perfect. 81 million people fired you, dude.
Yeah, right.
No, you're done.
Yeah.
You're done. We don't want you. We reject you.
Right.
I've said, bringing it back to my area of expertise with Russia, there is an inflection point. Russia is built on fear and cynicism. America is built on hope. And not a small amount of greed and racism and all the other ugly stuff that exists in all human beings. But the concept of the country is hope. Yeah. It's built on hope. Otherwise, why would pioneers, whatever you think, you get in a covered wagon and head to God only knows where to try and build a new life? It's hopeful. The basis of our country is hopeful. And all he sells is fear and hate. And I'd like to think we're done with that.
Right.
And I think we are.
Well, JD Vance has said that the U.S. should perhaps leave NATO if the European Union tries to regulate X and Elon Musk, which means it's coming. Means it's going to happen because he's getting his marching orders from the same place too. But also, they know it. They know it's coming. They know that Elon Musk is all tied up in all kinds of funky money from all over the place. His companies would not exist without government contracts at all. He might have to eventually remove himself from all of those companies, which would, especially the ones that are traded, openly on the Dow, right? There are reasons why he can get punted for for his legal problems, both here and in the European Union. And they're just going to grow. They're just going to grow. He's a bad dude, and he means ill. Yeah. And it's abundantly clear that that's just growing all the time. And he's got, it seems like he's got Vance through Teal on the, by the short and curlies, and is not going to let go anytime soon. That this was the bit that they were going to, like, JD Vance was meant to be the bit they were going to put in Trump's mouth, right? To help direct what they want. Project 2025 is the plan. JD will be the one that implements it while Trump golfs. I mean, they want him to be like the younger, more youth pastor looking Cheney. That's essentially it. And going forward, like that you could tell by their. I'm now getting a feeling that as you see them freak out, as the freak out grows, it's because they are aware of the trouble that they are in and that it is genuine. It is not. This is not a guess. Or they're kind of worried. They're getting phone calls. They're getting preliminary warnings of indictment. They're basically either from friends within the system telling them to lawyer up quickly, or from the Justice Department itself saying, notice of pending indictment. You are going to be indicted. You might want to lawyer up. In the same way that they do with a killer they brought in. Would you like an attorney? Like before you're charged, you have the right, to get your attorney in these big cases so that they can't claim later, I didn't have time to prepare. These are big, Gordian knot, crazy, complicated, high math problems. And so I can't be expected to have this tried in the next 3 years. There's too much paperwork. Like, well, start working on your paperwork, asshole, because it's a coming. That's what happened with Trump. That's specifically why Trump was told, ahead of time, and why he started his campaign early, was because he was given a preliminary notice of indictment that was coming down from a grand jury. Either somebody inside the DOJ or they directly told him, hey, we're going to indict you. You better get ready. And because you've got Secret Service around you and we've got to coordinate all this stuff, it's going to be a big deal. And by letting him know, he decided, I'll just start running for president early and I'll use that as cover. And there's a bunch of these folks, the Blaze and others, who are tied to this RT shit that have gotten a note from somebody.
And they're handling it so much better. The DOJ is handling this so much better than they did in 16. So,
right. Because they're not caught flat-footed.
Whatever you think about other DOJ stuff, but yeah.
That's
and look,
exactly right.
I've said this a million times. I'll say it again. When we get this guy in our rearview mirror, we need to do a thorough investigation, and we just need to look into everything that was going on with these guys, because this rot is huge,
it's so deep.
And
it's not just the like people at Meta or X or whatever that were helping these fuckers cover themselves. It's Ron Johnson. It's clearly Ron Johnson. It's Ron Paul and Rand Paul. Sure. It's Matt, to a lesser extent, probably Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene.
What's the Ohio?
Jim Jordan
from the basket. Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan's in there.
Yeah.
Gaetz is in there. I mean, they're all. Marjorie Taylor Greene literally regurgitates Russian talking points.
Right. But again, very easily could be a useful idiot because she's just that dumb. And it's easy to, she doesn't have to be paid under the table.
Which they rely on.
Yeah. Right. Those people, interestingly enough, again, are covered by free speech. So when she rails about, this is free speech, this is an attack on free speech, she's kind of telling the truth. Because she's so fucking stupid that she just hears this stuff and watches these QAnon videos and she just regurgitates it. And they know what her algorithm looks like and they can feed this stuff like right into her veins. But there are a bunch of these people who aren't as fucking stupid
Clockwork
as she
Orange.
is. Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. Steaky wigs and eggy wigs. No time for the old in-out love. I've just come to check the meter. Right. There are those that, I mean, again, she's stupid. Boebert's stupid. But Ron Johnson, Gates, those fuckers, Jim Jordan, they're not. They're, I mean, they are fucking dumb.
Jim Jordan's pretty stupid.
But
Gates
but they are coordinating this stuff. You know what I mean? Like they while they're like Carter Page. Carter Page is probably one of the singular stupidest people I have ever seen in my life in public. You know, who's not in entertainment and just goes, well, say what you will, but he writes a great song. I don't know what happened to his brain. You know, like he's borderline, like Gary Busey would go, dude, you seem a little, are you okay? You know, so Carter Page is an idiot, but he knows full well he's being asked to carry an envelope backstage at the RNC and hand it over to a Russian, advisor and say, all you did was meet and say hi. Right? He knows that what they can prove, what they can't prove, and so but nobody ever asks fucking Carter Page to type something or make a phone call on their behalf. He's a fucking idiot.
Yeah, well, go watch my episode with Lev Parnas.
Yeah,
he outlines this perfectly. They don't do it through email. They do it. They have little, meat at the side of this luncheon.
Dude, Trump was fucking eating notes and flushing them. Like he doesn't use email. Like you can tell this dude got a warning from Roy Cohn when they started. Look, if you're gonna get this kind of money from these kind of people, don't write anything fucking down. That's exactly what he heard, and that motherfucker has stuck to it. Now he would have done it anyways because it's also how you get busted cheating on your multiple wives, right? He's always been a conniving fuck. So like he's covering his ass in this, but there is no God. These guys figured out who Trump was and how to use him. They played him like a fucking fiddle. He's a weak egotist. And the one thing that's protected him all this time is that other people write shit down and he doesn't. And that's, if anything, the most disloyal thing you could do to Donald Trump is make a note of what he just said to you. It's happened a bunch of times. People in his administration, people in his business, from Alan Weisselberg to Michael Cohen to fucking like Vindman or Rex Tillerson or John Kelly, right? Yeah. You don't write it down. Don't make a note of what I fucking said. Because I won't be able to go back against it later and pretend, no, I actually said this and you misunderstood me. And you can listen to him hedging shit all the time. And it's a technique.
Yeah.
It is absolutely something.
It's that scene in the death of Stalin.
Right.
Where was it Khrushchev? Comes back from a night of drinking with Stalin, and his wife is awake and ready, waiting for him with a thing of coffee, so that he can go, okay, Ribbentrop said, or not, Beria said this, Beria said this, and Mayakovsky said this, and all these guys. Right. So that you can get it down while it's still fresh in your brain, so that you, down the road, have got your ammo. So he's screwed. I mean, none of us should take our foot off the gas. Obviously, right. I know that's the mantra, and I agree with it. I mean, we gotta, because who knows what's going to happen in October. But we can do this. We can do it. And we're gonna do it. We're going to reject this guy. He is not what we're about.
And I would there's
a reason why I put that Abe Lincoln quote at the end of every episode. We are better than this. We are a hopeful nation. We are not a nation built on fear and hatred. I really don't. I've been around the world. I've seen lots of different countries and situations, and let's get rid of this guy.
I agree. And I think a strategy that Democrats should start looking into, and I think most are going to, is vote early in person. The strategy should be from Yep, the very first day, whether you take your mail-in ballot that you got and walk it the fuck in, or go to your local polling place that they have at City Hall or wherever they are set up for early voting and vote in person. Bank your vote. Yeah, a bunch of people in there saying, they're voting this Friday when it starts, because that really will be, again, they'll try to ride this early, the red mirage again, meaning the first, in a lot of places, the first votes that will be counted are the ones that were cast that day. And then they'll start counting the early votes and the mail-in votes later in the day. And it will go through the same thing in 2020. But it won't matter because they're real votes. They count. And if you have an issue with a provisional situation or something like that, you'll figure that out early and you'll be able to solve it. And if they try to say, you're not registered in here or whatever, you can go find an answer to that and then still have time to vote rather than show up on the day and go, oh, okay, I see what you're trying to do. Yeah.
I'm flying halfway around the world to do it. And
right.
I'm out of principle.
If you can't, and if you can't do it, and if you can't do it in person, vote by mail early. Give yourself plenty of time for your ballot to get there. And if there's any ballot,
registered. Yeah,
check your registration today. Vote.org or vote.gov are great places to do it. And in the process of doing that, if you got to mail it in, if your state, like California, I know when my ballot has been received. They text me if I mail in my ballot, they text me and let me know when it's arrived at, when it was sent out to my home, when I voted and filled it in, sent it out, I will get a text message that they have received my ballot. And that's that. That's super important. And because they're they can have all these ridiculous poll watchers standing around going, nuh-uh, all they want, but it won't matter. All they're going to do is send more people there to witness Trump losing. So, that our strategy has to be vote early to give ourselves some room in case there's any kind of, monkey business that they try to do. So, anyways, we're a little over time, but I want to thank you, Phil. Be safe, right, my friend. New episode of On the Edge coming this Sunday.
Hopefully.
Okay.
Another issue with our guest, but hopefully we rectified it. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Okay, cool.
But regardless, I'll talk to you on Saturday.
Absolutely. Everybody, follow Philip Ittner's YouTube channel, if you would. Subscribe over there.
The last episode was great.
Yeah.
The last episode with Jessica
amazing
Berlin
stuff.
Was fantastic. It's
Absolutely.
A really good one.
All right. Well, I greatly appreciate it, my friend.
Right,
thank you so much. Take care, and we'll see you soon.
Right.
All right. Be safe.
Thank you.
There you go. Your
right,
confidence is your Meduji. Yeah.
Make them kiss.
Yeah, right.
Gotta go.
I think this looks more like a young It looks like a young Martin Short more than it looks like Mark Hamill. Just saying. It's a little, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, great. Oh,
talk to you on Saturday, Hal.
As if I'm not the greatest Luke Skywalker, I must say. Perhaps I'm not. I don't know. Oh, joy. All right. Thanks so much, Phil.
Take care,
See
buddy.
you soon.
Talk to you on Saturday.
Okay,
right,
be safe.
bye-bye.
There he goes, ladies and gentlemen. Philip Ittner getting some food and some rest, hopefully. And I will see you guys later this afternoon for the afternoon show. And now I'm going to go pass out because I drove all night. Few people can say, I got to say, few people can truly say that on the regular, they live the Wanted Dead or Alive Bon Jovi song lyrics. But I drive all night just to get back home. True. I mean, absolutely true. So, anyways, much love to you guys. See you this afternoon. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show. It's Hal Sparks Mornings, Megaworldwide. Help the channel out. Everybody else has like millions of subscribers, and here I am over here cranking out massive content. Come on. Just subscribe. It's not that hard. Also, the show's available in podcast form, bits and pieces of it. Obviously, the parts that don't require visual stimuli. Hello. That's the Hal Sparks Podcast, Megaworldwide, available on iTunes and Spotify and all the places you'd find a podcast. Listen to me, my dulcet tones drift into your ear holes. This is starting to get gross. I'm disturbing myself. But on the other hand... hit that like, everybody. See you next time. Bye.